live in the times when we have so many ideas, concepts, information, knowledge to explore. And that has its benefits. But the challenges are sometimes we struggle to see the smallest and the simplest of things with clarity. And that's why I feel it's really a good idea to get back to basics and understand our life or feel it the way it is. Just the very basic of things, what we are, how we are living, the consciousness. And some of you may call it spirituality, some of you may find it scientific in nature, but it's really an interesting idea to just explore the fundamentals. And which is why the book that I've got today for you is called The Transparency of Things. It's written by Rupert Spira, and it really talks about the nature of our experience, the human experience, the consciousness, what it is really. The author himself is well versed in Indian philosophy and particularly the Vedanta tradition. And in this book he explores the Advaita Vedanta philosophy, which is really about non-dualism. That is one of the ideas in Hindu philosophy. There is also the concept of dualism, which means that there is distinction between God and you, which is also something that you find in many Abrahamic beliefs like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, that God is separate than you are. On the other hand, in non-dualism or Advaita, you find there's just oneness. You are part of that great cosmos, or God, as some might say. So this is a very much a spiritual exploration of the nature of reality. And I won't use my words, I will use author's own words about what he means by this. What is he trying to explore here? So I read out a few pages from this book in the next few minutes. So let's start. The Garden of Unknowing. The abstract concepts of the mind cannot apprehend reality, although they are an expression of it. Duality, the subject-object polarization, is inherent in the concepts of the mind. For example, when we speak of the body, we refer to an object, which in turn implies a subject. If we explore this object, we discover that it is non-existent as such, and is in fact only a sensation. However, a sensation is still an object, and further exploration reveals that it is in fact made of sensing, of mind stuff, rather than anything physical. Sensing in turn is discovered to be made of knowing, and if we explore knowing, we find that it is made of consciousness. If we explore consciousness, we find that it has no objective qualities, and yet it is what we most intimately know ourselves to be. It is what we refer to as I. And if we explore I, we find it is made of. The abstract concepts of the mind collapse here. They cannot go any further. There is no adequate name for that into which the mind dissolves. We are taken to the utmost simplicity of direct experience. This de-objectification is the process of apparent involution through which that which cannot be named withdraws its projection of the mind, body, and world, and rediscovers that it is the sole substance of the seamless totality of experience. That which cannot be named, the absolute emptiness into which the mind collapses, then projects itself within itself, back along the same path of apparent objectification, to recreate the appearance of the mind, body, and world. That which cannot be named and yet which is sometimes referred to as I, consciousness, being, knowingness, takes the shape of thinking, sensing, or perceiving in order to appear as a mind, a body, or a world. This is the process of apparent evolution through which that which cannot be named gives birth to a mind, a body, and a world without ever becoming anything other than itself. This process of evolution and involution is the dance of oneness. That which cannot be named taking shape and dissolving, vibrating in every nuance of experience and dissolving itself into itself, transparent, open, empty, and luminous. Mind attempts to describe the modulations of this emptiness manifesting itself as the fullness of experience, and this fullness recognizing itself as emptiness, knowing all the time that in doing so it is holding a candle to the wind. Mind describes the names and forms through which that which cannot be named refracts itself in order to make itself appear as two, as many, in order to make consciousness, being, appear as consciousness and being. And using the same names and forms, mind describes the apparent process through which that which cannot be named discovers that it never becomes anything, that it is always only itself and itself and itself. Each statement that is made here is provisionally true in relation to one statement, but false in relation to another. However, it is never absolutely true. The purpose of every statement is to indicate the falsity of the previous one, only to await its own imminent demise. Each is an agent of truth, but never true. Mind, in the broadest sense of the word, is made of concepts and appearances. It never frames or grasps reality itself. However, by speaking in this way, mind is using itself to create evocations rather than descriptions of the experience of consciousness knowing itself. These evocations are temporary expressions of that which cannot be named, like flowers blossoming for a moment, shedding the perfume of their origin on the garden of unknowing. All that is happening in these contemplations is the clear seeing of the essential nature of experience. There is no attempt to change or manipulate it, to create a peaceful or happy state, to get rid of suffering or to change the world. There is simply the clear seeing of the true nature of this current experience. This clear seeing is not an intellectual understanding, although it may be formulated provisionally in intellectual terms when required by the current situation. Rather, it is the direct, intimate, and immediate knowing of ourselves resting in and as the formless expanse of presence, and simultaneously dancing in the vibrancy and aliveness of every gesture and nuance of the body, mind, and world. The clear seeing of what is has a profound effect on the appearance of the mind, the body, and the world. But that is not the object of this investigation. There is no object to this investigation. Even the purpose of seeing clearly turns out to be too much in the end. It is the thorn that removes the thorn. And when even this last trace of becoming has been dissolved in understanding, it too is abandoned, leaving only being. However, in most cases, this exploration is a prelude to the revelation of being. We start with experience and stay close to it. We do not start with a theory, a model, a map, or a teaching, and then try to fit our experience into that model. Absolutely nothing is taken for granted. We start with experience and we end with experience. We allow the naked clarity of experience itself to relieve itself of the burden of duality. We simply look at the facts of experience. Is it true of my experience in this moment? That is the only reference point. The few core beliefs and preconceived ideas that we hold about the nature of ourselves and the world are exposed in this disinterested investigation. We do not do anything to these beliefs. We are not trying to destroy them, but rather to expose them. Belief and doubt are two sides of the same coin. When a belief is exposed, it is found either to be true or to be false. Any feelings or patterns of behavior that were dependent on the belief that has been exposed will, in due time, naturally dissolve, simply because they are no longer nourished by the belief. They die of neglect. These feelings and patterns of behavior are the counterpart at the level of the body to beliefs at the level of the mind, and their dissolution is accomplished in the same way. What was an investigation at the level of the mind is an exploration at the level of the body. In this exploration, these feelings and patterns of behavior are exposed. And in this exposure, their power to separate is revealed to be non-existent. Separation is not simply understood to be an illusion. It is felt as such. No longer nourished by belief, these feelings are exposed and seen for what they are. They die of the fierce clarity of being clearly seen. This dissolution of beliefs and feelings has a profound effect on our lives, our ideas, our relationships, our bodies, our work, the world, in fact on everything. However, the purpose of this investigation and exploration is not to change anything. It is simply the clear seeing of what is, and clearly seeing is the shrine on which being shines. This line of investigation could be likened to taking several MRI scans of an apple. With each scan, the apple is sliced up in different ways, each one showing a new section or point of view. However, the apple is never touched in this process. It always remains just as it is, whole, untouched, unmodified, undivided. It only appears to be divided, and this appearance gives a more complete picture of its true undivided nature. It is the same with our experience. The contemplations in this book are like MRI scans of our experience. They look at our experience from many angles, spreading it out, opening it up. However, our experience itself is always one. It is always a seamless, unified totality with no separate parts, and its nature is always only pure consciousness. There is a fact of experience, and it never changes, even if we think it to be otherwise. This line of inquiry comes from the truth of direct experience and therefore leads back to it. It leads to the reality of experience, to the experience of consciousness knowing itself knowingly. It is ruthless and tender at the same time and utterly simple. It is sometimes thought that this kind of inquiry is intellectual and abstract, bearing little relation to our day-to-day experience. However, it is only because our conventional dualistic concepts about the nature of reality are themselves so densely interwoven with abstract and erroneous ideas that they require some meticulous deconstruction. In this case, it has not yet been seen that what are considered to be our normal, common sense assumptions are in fact themselves intellectual and abstract. That is, they have little to do with the facts of experience. The experience of consciousness knowing itself knowingly in and as all its appearances becomes as obvious and self-evident as the previous apparently obvious and self-evident experience of objects existing in time and space, independent and separate from consciousness. So I'm going to leave it there. And I hope that gives you a taste of non-dualism, the Advaita philosophy, and how the author tries to bring in that concept here and tries to explain us about the nature of reality and consciousness. If you read Indian philosophy and particularly Advaita philosophy, you'll find these concepts very much there. How there is no place for subject and object, but it is just one. And it gets really interesting as you read this book further. It's divided into really small, short sections, and you can easily read it, moving on from one concept to another, written as you see in a simple language. You might find it a bit tricky or challenging in the beginning to understand what the author is trying to say here in terms of reality and in terms of how they define consciousness or the self. But it gets really easy as you go along. So I hope you'll have a very good time and a lot of fun while exploring your own inner self, the consciousness, while reading this book.